Hello and welcome to Dateline Abuja. I am Kayla Megwa. Let's begin with a roundup of major stories making the news from Nigeria's seat of power.
Citizens of Nigeria.
President Muhammadu Buhari says high-profile individuals, including a member of the National Assembly, are financing secessionist leaders like Nnamdi Kanu and Sunday Igboho. He spoke on this and other national issues in his nationwide broadcast to mark the nation's 61st independence anniversary.
We shall continue to work on dialogue-based solutions to address legitimate grievances, but we remain ready to take decisive actions against secessionist agitators and their sponsors who threaten our national security. The recent arrests of Nnamdi Kanu and Sunday Igboho and the ongoing investigations being conducted have revealed certain high-profile financiers behind these individuals. We are vigorously pursuing these financiers, including one identified as a serving member of the National Assembly.
President Buhari also attended a parade to mark the nation's 61st independence anniversary. Parades, cultural displays, hearty cheers and gun salutes heralded the celebration. The president is accompanied by top government officials, both past and present, traditional and religious leaders, as well as the diplomatic corps. Former President Dr. Goodluck Jonathan is making a case for the adoption of electronic voting. The former president made the remark after addressing participants of the National Defense College.
Nations that they don't have confidence in the electoral management bodies, people will reject the results even before the result is announced. And sometimes when the result comes out, it favors them. But because of that aspect of fear that I'm not expecting the proper thing to be done is key. And that's why I was saying that the National Assembly, while looking at the law, must make sure that we use electronic ways or deploy maximum ICT. There's no need to fear that much. People move their money, billions of dollars across this world every day, and people are not stealing. So why do we have to fear that, somebody will hack or no?
The Federal Executive Council, FEC, has approved the right to 14-day paternity leave for male federal civil servants to allow them to bond with their infants. This was disclosed by the head of service of the Federation, Dr. Folashade Yemi-Esan, after the weekly virtual FEC meeting presided over by Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo at the Presidential Villa.
We've also gotten approval to include paternity leave. This is something that is new, and this is something that the unions in the service asked that we include, and luckily we've been able to include it. We've also been able to ensure that leave now is calculated based on working days, not on calendar days. That also has been approved. The man is entitled to paternity leave of about 14 days. So that is what has been approved for men, so that the men and their babies also can bond well together. It's important because we want the young children and the youth really to bond properly with their fathers.
The National Assembly has urged President Muhammadu Buhari to declare bandits as terrorists. The lawmakers took the decision after considering motions in both chambers on the rate of banditry in the country.
As leaders, we are also supposed to play our role, whether we are in the executive or the legislature or the judiciary or simply leaders. But for political leaders, we have to ensure that we keep this country united. We provide an equitable, very fair environment for every Nigerian to feel safe, to feel secured, and of course pursue his or her legal life in a way and manner that there is no encumbrance or harassment in any part of the country.
The Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19 is raising serious concern on the rise in cases of inbound passengers who constantly evade the country's quarantine requirements in connivance with health officials at the international airports. The chairman of the steering committee, Mr. Boss Mustafa, made this known during this week's media briefing. The battle to determine who collects value-added tax will now shift to the Port Harcourt Division of the Court of Appeal as from October the 7th, 2021. The decision was taken after the Court of Appeal in Abuja granted a request by the Lagos State government to join Rivers State in the appeal filed by the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS.
Welcome back. A humanitarian crisis comes with so much baggage, so many ripple effects. Our focus in the nation's capital today is on one of those ripple effects of a humanitarian crisis: hunger. The IDP camps in the Federal Capital Territory are an overflow of the insurgency-propelled migration from battered communities in the Northeast. This humanitarian crisis has led to hunger, and according to the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, nearly half of all the deaths in children under 5 are attributed to undernutrition. The National Commission of Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons is flagging off a zero hunger campaign for internally displaced persons. The initial launch was done in the Durumi camp in the nation's capital. Please watch this.
The National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons is leading this campaign to tackle hunger among internally displaced persons and refugees. According to the World Food Programme, climate change and conflicts are affecting the lives and livelihoods of millions of Nigerians. 3.4 million people are facing acute hunger, and 300,000 children are suffering from acute malnutrition. The United Nations Refugee Agency also states that 4.3 million people are still entirely dependent on food assistance. In line with the second Sustainable Development Goal set out by the United Nations General Assembly, the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons, in collaboration with the Defense and Police Officers' Wives Association, is launching this campaign to assuage the growing burden of hunger among persons of concern.
Food scarcity poses a threat to national development and national security. The Project Zero Hunger as a necessity will help streamline and enhance the accessibility, distribution, and availability of mainly food and also non-food items to satisfy the immediate nutritional needs of all persons of concern using the food care parks. This project will adopt and promote an integrated and whole-of-society approach which gives everyone the opportunity to complement our federal government effort, especially in feeding persons of concern. At least one person can feed one person of concern. Each one feed one. Thus, addressing the immediate challenges around hunger, malnutrition for these persons of concern. This will allow the Commission to deploy more resources towards durable and sustainable solutions. The Project Zero Hunger will also create a forum for different stakeholders to collaborate and support the Commission in mobilizing additional resources to positively make better impact in the lives of persons of concern while eliminating waste, reducing vulnerability, addressing issues of compromise, and avoiding duplication of efforts.
Nigeria has gone through insecurity challenges that has led to an increase in the number of individuals displaced from their homes and areas of residence. In the last 5 years, there are reports of increase in numbers of refugees in these camps, leading to malnutrition, lack of educational facilities, and opportunities for empowerment. These and many more challenges are the reason DPOA and NCF-RMI are here. There is a proverb that says, you cannot tell a hungry child that you gave him food yesterday. That is to say, our visit here is the first of many. The Zero Hunger program we are launching, which will be expanded on during the course of the day, is a flagship program that strives to empower the vulnerable and indigent victims in our community. I am glad to be a part of this project because it is my desire to live in a Nigeria where individuals should be hungry for prosperity and not food or basic amenities.
Nigeria is in the middle of a food crisis caused by climate change and insecurity. The situation is worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite the efforts of government and humanitarian aid, the United Nations Refugee Agency states that some 12.5 million people remain in need of humanitarian assistance in the Lake Chad Basin region, with 5.3 million people remaining food insecure.
Nigeria is facing a food and nutrition security crisis, which has been intensified by the COVID-19 pandemic and its effects on the food value chain, including rising food prices and food inflation, rising as high as 22.95% in March 2021, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. The persistence of food and nutrition insecurity in Nigeria is also the result of many other factors, including rapid urbanization, conflict, insecurity, climate change, high population growth, low agricultural productivity, among others. In Nigeria, due to the conflict in the northeast, it's estimated that 12.8 million people throughout the north would be food insecure at crisis and emergency levels, and that 4.4 million would be at risk in the Bay States. These challenges threaten Nigeria's achievement of national and global development goals I earlier spoke about. The UN in Nigeria is working to support the Nigerian government through its Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development to address the immediate effects of COVID-19 on the food and nutrition value chain. The outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic globally in 2020 resulted in UNHCR globally working to strengthen our programs and advocate for the inclusion of our persons of concern in social safety net programs.
However, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Irabo, has some assurance for farmers.
The operations of the armed forces and other security agencies have been part and parcel of the effort in this regard. You recall that a few months ago, Mr. President mandated the armed forces and security agencies to ensure that security situation is brought to a reasonable closure in order to enable farmers to return to their various farms. This, of course, is recognizing the fact that if we do not have farmers return to their farms, then, of course, food security, which, of course, will be the basis for our existence, will not be achieved. And I'd like to gladly inform this audience that the armed forces and other security agencies are working assiduously in achieving Mr. President's mandate in that regard. And so, as Nigeria is committed to ending hunger, achieving food security, improving nutrition, and promoting sustainable agriculture, which are the priority of the World Food Programme, all hands, I must say, must be on deck to support this noble initiative.
These are indeed tough times for internally displaced persons in the FCT. Although some temporary succor has been provided for them, they would prefer to return to their homes and resume their normal lives.
The country is seeking local solutions to its humanitarian issues. The challenge is, Nigeria's most vulnerable face the impacts of climate change and insurgency in addition to an existing infrastructure deficit. It's a terrible place to be. My guest on the program is Mr. John McKissick, the Deputy Representative, United Nations High Commission for Refugees and Humanitarian Coordinator in Nigeria. Mr. McKissick, welcome to Dateline Abuja.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
People in need of desperate help is one phrase I've been hearing for the past 1 week, especially in the Nigerian situation. What figures in Nigeria is the UNHCR having to deal with in terms of people who are displaced or in dire need of assistance?
Okay, so It's very a fluid figure, but in the Northeast, it's more than 2 million IDPs currently displaced, and then there's also more than 2 million, I think even closer to 3 million, who have actually gone back home. But once they're registered and captured as having returned, that's kind of the end of the story, and we could easily assume that that they're okay, but they're not okay. So even after IDPs have returned home, the conflict comes back again, and so they're uprooted again. So there's people who have become IDPs more than one time. So, but not to like confuse the numbers that it's like 2 people instead of 1 person. It could be 1 person displaced several times. That's why it's hard to have a real accurate number, but we can safely say more than 2 million IDPs currently displaced, with another more than 2 million who have at some point returned home but may have become displaced again, and it's hard to know.
What's responsible for child statelessness in Nigeria, and how much of a problem does this pose to Nigeria as a country?
Well, that was actually your question. Why are they not registered? So let me address that. There's a lot of poverty in Nigeria, so let's face it. Mothers give birth at home. They go to the home of a traditional birth attendant. They give birth there. But you don't have somebody from the National Population Commission to just give a birth certificate on the spot. So they take their child home, the child begins to grow. And I think it's a lack of knowledge, maybe literacy is an issue there, why the parents don't understand why a birth certificate is so important. It is important. You know, everybody in Nigeria now should have a NIN. A national identification number. How are you going to get an NIN if you don't have a birth certificate? How are you going to go to school? How are you going to register your children in school if they don't have a birth certificate? You know, eventually they're going to grow up and they might want to leave Nigeria and travel abroad. How are they going to travel without a passport? To get a passport, you need a birth certificate to be able to get a passport. There's so many things that birth certificate gives you access to: education, healthcare, documents, the NIN, as I mentioned. So all children want this, all mothers want this for their children, all fathers want this for their children. So, you know, we look at the numbers. It's more than 1 million Nigerians. Kids are born every year and are not getting the birth certificate. A million. So it's really important for mothers and fathers to get their children.
Where do they this number, where is it coming from? Where's the bulk of the figure coming from?
Well, it's coming from the figures that we are getting from sister agencies, from UNICEF, for example, from NPC, the National Population Commission.
Yeah, I think what I'm trying to find out is what part of the country is most affected by this, you know, because if there's going to be some kind of advocacy to ensure that parents do this, then it has to be tailored to where the bulk of the figures are coming from. So what part of Nigeria is most affected by stateless children? Is it the north? Is it the south? Is it the middle belt? What are we dealing with here?
Well, I think it's all over the country. Wherever you see poverty, wherever you see IDP camps, those are the places where mothers and fathers tend to have children without having them register and getting the children the birth certificates. But the most of the IDPs and where you see children being born and those children not being registered is in the Northeast. So the Bay States, Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe. And it's not only due to poverty or forced displacement. There's also religious factors and cultural factors that lead into that. If you have a child that's under the age of 5 years, go to the National Population Commission. They have offices all over the country. We're not able to actually put together teams to go out and do these kind of registration exercises like we did this week. We can't do that for 1 million children that are born each year and don't get the birth certificates. So it's the responsibility of the parents to get out and get their children registered and get those birth certificates to their children. They'll be so happy.
How much will it cost to cater for these stateless children, especially the ones in IDP camps?
Well, there is no cost. Birth certificates are given free of charge. So that's another reason that it should be an incentive for parents to go and register their children. There is no cost. It's free of charge.
All right, before we let you go, What should the government be doing to address this situation? I know that the UNHCR is doing a lot of sensitization programs. So talk to us about some of the things that the Nigerian government should be doing right now to mitigate the situation, especially when it comes to unregistered children. You're registering about 1,500 children in IDP camps. What should the government be doing right now?
They can pass domestication legislation for the two statelessness conventions that they have ratified. So there's the 1954 Convention on the Status of Stateless Persons. Nigeria has ratified it, but we need domestication legislation. The same for the 1961 Convention on Reduction of Statelessness. And we take this message of birth registration to Geneva, and we hope for it to also be made public all over the world that Nigeria is doing this. We're aiming to reduce statelessness of children, but they need to pass domestication legislation also for the 1961 Convention. Once that is done, the road is paved towards establishing a statelessness status determination procedure so that even adults who don't have a birth certificate can be regularized and have their citizenship through a statelessness status determination procedure. Another thing that needs to be done is to pass in the domestication legislation a provision that children who would otherwise be stateless if not giving a birth certificate would then receive a birth certificate. So right now Nigeria adheres to jus sanguinis as the basis for registration of births and birth certificates, nationality. It's based on the parents. So one of the two parents has to be a Nigerian. So what I saw in the IDP camp here, they were asking all those questions. The mother is from where? The father is from where? As long as either the mother or the father is Nigerian, then that child can be given a birth certificate. So they ask those questions. Of course, in our IDP situation, both parents are Nigerians, so it's very easy to then give that birth certificate. But they ask questions like, what language do the parents speak? What state were they born in? What ethnicity are they? What tribe do they belong to? Enough to give the registrars credible evidence that this child has at least one parent who is a Nigerian. So, but if that isn't there, and the child is there, and it would be a risk of statelessness if not given the birth certificate, this provision can be put in the legislation once the 1961 Convention is domesticated through national legislation.
Well, Mr. McKissick, good luck with the work that you do, and thank you so much for being with us on Dateline Abuja.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Nigeria's plans to handle its humanitarian crisis look amazing. Not just good, amazing, on paper, as it has for the past years. And truthfully, efforts at implementing these plans are on the ground, but they must be sustained. As of May of 2021, Nigeria had the third highest number of internally displaced persons in Africa. By mid-2020, it counted 2.6 million IDPs. 7.1 million people in crisis is an alarming number of people to live endangered in any country. And you may feel this situation is far away from you, but the chickens always come home to roost. That's Dateline Abuja this week. Please let us know the happenings in your neighborhood using the social media handles showing right now on your screen. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Kayla Megwa. See you next time.